In this video, I'd like to make an argument for the idea of succession planting and avoiding what some people consider a necessity of digging out or stump grinding old trees in order to plant new trees. So let me talk about that. I'll show a whole series of examples here, but in 2009, when my folks first bought this Edible Acres property, 6-acre property, there were a number of trees that they had removed because they were in pretty bad shape and near enough to the home, you can see it right over there, that there are some pines in particular and some old black locust that they had cut down. And we very intentionally asked the folks who dropped the trees, hey, leave the stumps, leave them nice and tall. And the reason we did that is for a few things. Number one, it was a nice place to put a platform for bird baths and seeds for wildlife, and also just habitat for mushrooms and for woodpeckers to peck them apart. And this whole area was a lawn in between these pine trees. And what a lot of folks will do is go through the very costly and energetically costly endeavor of clearing old trees, having an excavator come in to rip the whole root system out, stump grinders, all that kind of work. What we did instead was went ahead and just simply planted trees next to the stumps, and it's worked beautifully. So just as some examples, this was a Scots pine, felled. The very next spring we put in a sweet cherry tree to the north of it, which has been absolutely thrilled to be there. The autumn olives are doing well. Persimmon that was planted over here is doing just fine. And so what happens is, as the root system, the huge root system of these old pines, the moment it's killed, it's felled, the root system begins to slowly decompose gently and evenly in the soil. And it's exactly what these other younger trees know what to do with. This is how it works in nature. An old tree passes away and the new trees capitalize on the excess nutrient and the available light. They know how to do it. They don't need us to shred the old trees, rip them apart, chip them, all that sort of extra work. Let's look at another area. In this area it's a lot less obvious, but there was a black locust and a black locust here that in 2009 were cut. In this case we had them cut flush to ground. These were probably 40-year-old trees, 2 feet in diameter or so, made beautiful firewood. And the lumps where they were, I dumped some soil and I planted honey locust, which I've been managing as a pollard, and a whole crazy assortment of other beings in here. There's haskap, there's raspberries, Turkish rocket, sea kale, dwarf sour cherries, Nanking cherries, Siberian peaches, etc., etc. None of which have complained about the soil not having the stump ground out and all that. They just got on with it. They've been able to absorb all the nutrients, and the soil ecosystem was undisturbed, so it was able to provide nutrients right away to those new young beings. This white pine stump, now almost completely returned to soil. There you go. There's your stump grinding. It just takes 9 years. Anyway, 2 or 3 years after this tree was felled, I pushed a whole bunch of pawpaw seeds in a ring around it with some deep mulch. They shot up and have done really well for themselves. And then I've added in wild American plum, some Nanking cherry, and a mulberry decided to pop in on its own, which I'm very happy to see here. We also cast rotting pawpaw fruit in the fall and let leaf litter land on it, and every year or two dig these out. And since the root system of the pine has dissolved so much in here, the soil deep in here is incredibly rich, incredibly loose. It's very easy to dig them out. So there's another guild surrounded around the ancient skeleton of this old pine. 2 last examples. Another old white pine, just to the south of it, 2 feet, maybe a month after it was felled, I planted a seedling chestnut. This is a Chinese chestnut, which has done just fine for itself. No resource competition, no issues with nutrient bind up and all that. if you're concerned about that as the stump decomposes, simply put some compost around your young tree, or add some fertility, chop and drop some comfrey or pea near it. Those are options. And this pine has just been slowly dissolving, and all sorts of neat little habitat. Birds come and go. I'm sure there's a whole teeming set of life in there. This other pine, same deal. That's a Chickasaw Plum, which is suckering and spreading and filling all around. This pine just recently put on another flush of yet another type of mushroom. It had oysters coming out of it at some point in the past. It's basically just a rich support being as it passes away slowly as succession fills in. So Chickasaw Plum, there's a lilac in here, there's a hickory that some squirrels planted, and a peach. Everybody's very happy with this situation. So hopefully that conveys the point. If you're having trees felled, or there's an old tree that passed away, do yourself a favor, your pocketbook a favor, and the ecosystem a favor. Leave the stumps in position, leave the soil undisturbed, and plant in some new, exciting, diverse friends to replace the canopy. It's how nature would prefer to do it. If you work with nature, it works with you. And all of these beings are really psyched to be here, and we're very happy to steward and hang out with them. So thanks for watching.